Mic test. Hoochie Mamas Incorporated.
There we go. One more time.
You are now listening to the Still Watchable podcast, featuring El Mariachi, contains language. Hey Richard, how you doing?
Alright, hey Fran, how's it going? So, in this episode, we'll actually be discussing El Mariachi, which is Robert Rodriguez's first movie, started his career. The thing we should note about this film is there are low budget films and independent films, and then there are films that's just a dude with a camera, alright?
Right.
That's something to keep in mind. So obviously there will be spoilers
Yeah.
discuss, but
I think most people will know which category this film falls under if they've heard
right.
anything about it.
This is a classic, but it was one of those things where it's like, because I haven't watched the movie, in like probably a decade or something.
Yeah, same
So
here.
when I was rewatching it last night, I was like, oh, right. And
Yeah.
yeah, this was your idea, Fran. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I picked it because do you know what day it is today? I'll give you a
Today's?
clue, but by today I mean 2 days from now when I'll probably release this.
Oh, 2 days from now, yes. It is Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
Okay.
So yeah, we're celebrating with this movie. Since here in the States, Cinco de Mayo is kind of like the St. Patty's Day equivalent, where Mexican Americans kind of seem to celebrate it more than.
Yeah, it's definitely not what the holiday actually commemorates, or the way it's supposed to. Like, I mean,
Right.
it's become something else in the States
Yeah.
than what its original intent was.
Yeah,
Put
it
it
just
that way.
snowballed into some, and hey, whatever. People apparently drink almost as much as they do in the Super Bowl during this, as
Jesus
far
Christ
as
in
beer
heaven.
sales are concerned. Although, are they making Corona beer again? I know they suspended it for a bit, right?
Yeah, there was the whole thing with the name, which it bothers me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That would be a whole nother podcast, I guess.
Yeah. But this is actually going back. This podcast is actually going back to the premise that you had set out for this whole podcast about
True.
talking
The original.
older films. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, this is literally a film from the last century. I mean,
Oh my God, true.
the millennium, because we're actually now 20 years into a new millennium, a
Oh my
new
God,
century. So
that's
it's
crazy.
ridiculous how much this has changed, because this
I
movie
know.
was
1992.
correct, 1992.
And I was thinking about it because I think I was in Mexico around that time because my parents took us all there on vacation. I want to say around 92, 93 because I was a kid. Although
Yeah.
this is really dating me. I guess what I mean to say is 1992, what is that?
Well, I was gonna say how old you would have been in '92, but
I don't know any 1992s other than the price of my new selfie stick, of course.
well, I think I already dated us when we were talking about Woo Assassins, and in 2004 I mentioned that we had graduated high school.
Yeah, that Pandora's box has been opened, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, anyway, it's crazy to think because I like a lot of Rodriguez's stuff, so every once in a while I'll look up some of his interviews or whatnot, and he always kind of tells the story of how he started out and how he saved money by shooting on 16 millimeter and all this stuff that's not really even relevant today. Like if people want to start out today, they can just buy like even with their phones, if they already have a cell phone that shoots decent video, they can just go with that. But,
Yeah, I mean, like the footage now on cell phones, like the
Yeah.
quality, because it's all digital, can just be straight up amazing, as opposed to actually having to buy film reels. I mean, you can
Yeah.
get like SD cards for storage, and you can get them to be huge amounts, and then you can just flip out SD cards, and it's not going to cost you as much as freaking rolls and rolls of film.
Right, because this movie has the Guinness record of the cheapest movie to earn more than $1 million at the box office.
You
and
are correct, sir.
yeah, and it was made for around $7,000, which was then expanded upon to distribute here in the States. But anyways, like that's really low for any movie, especially like a mainstream movie. And
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, that sounds like a lot to people like me, that if I want to shoot something, it's like, Jesus, I'd have to raise $7,000. It's crazy if
But
you.
in the
But at the time,
yeah, but like in the contents of like a whole, I think it's like 80-minute movie. I mean,
right?
and it's one of those things where it's like when I say abandon his camera, I mean the cast of the movie when they weren't in scenes worked as crew on the movie.
Right.
Right, like that's the level. It's like, okay, you're not in the scene. We still need to be here. It's like, everyone, please help out if you can. Do what you can.
Yeah, and it's funny because Rodriguez has famously said like he had access to a small town, a guitar case, and a turtle. So he like made a story about that. uh, but yeah, it just works really well.
And the thing, I mean, the movie. I mean, should we go into like the actual movie now?
Yeah, it's hard to
Because
tell because there's so much backstory we can get into about this.
there is so much backstory. But if you haven't seen El Mariachi, it's very much a modern Western. Like, that's the simplest way
Mm,
you can break it down. It's a man comes into town.
yeah,
There's, shit going down. He gets sort of embroiled and or wrapped up in it, and it's his story. And then, there's violence and everything. So that's sort of like, just the setup. It's a very, I don't want to say
definitely.
simple. It's a very, like, it's a used format, but it's done very effectively. And it's also one
Yeah.
of those things now where you have to keep in mind, again, 1992, a man and his camera.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's see. Before I get into my notes, I do want to add. I think that's a perfect description. You very much, even though it's his first movie, you do get a sense of what Rodriguez's style is, the action
right.
shot and the perspective shots and all that. And
Oh man, the perspective shots, those
yeah,
those those angles, the
oh
distance
yeah,
from the actor from the camera, amazing.
right.
Sorry to cut you off, Ryan.
No, no, yeah, for sure. And which I think he kind of like revolutionized that style. I'm trying to think. Maybe Luc Besson did it first, but that whole like using the camera to give you a sense of action without really increasing the budget, like he definitely
Hmm.
has made a career out of that. And it's worked really well with some later movies like Desperado and From Dusk Till Dawn. But this movie feels different from him, and
Right.
I like, not in a bad way, and I don't want to diminish his other movies either. But this movie has like a certain grittiness about it that sort of makes it feel more important. I don't know what was your take on that? You've seen some of his other movies too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm still not sure if that's just trying to if that's the difference between like what he had to do like
Mm,
for making this movie because he
right.
had a very limited budget. He wanted to make sure to spend as little possible, perfectly reasonable,
Yeah.
versus what like them giving him, oh, now here's a budget to make a movie,
Right.
go full range. So there, like here, he had to cut corners, and then I
Yeah.
mean it's very effective. And then it was like, well, did he not have to cut those corners when he was given a budget? Like, would he still have to use tricks or?
Right.
And then it changed. I mean, it definitely changes the film because it's also something where it's like when you have a budget, right? It's not just him making the movie on his dime, right? It's like producers, it's
Hmm.
again a crew. It's like, oh, can we reshoot this? Should we reshoot this?
Right.
And then with El Mariachi, it's like, no, we have to like shoot it and go because he also did it in sequential order because he wanted to make sure everything sort of worked. And
Yeah, because I don't think he's a big fan of storyboarding his stuff, or at least he wasn't at this point. But yeah, good point. Like how much of it is necessity being the mother of invention here, and how much of it is just like what his creative output looks like.
exactly. Because there was
Um,
also like I don't know. There was one thing that cracked me up. This is because there was a trick used in it that I mean you do see it sometimes where he would speed up the film, and
oh
in El
yeah.
Mariachi it was done sort of comically, like when the guy was like, "Oh, what do I need one mariachi for when I have a whole band?" And it like the guy sets up with his keyboard, but they sped up
That
the film
dude,
there. So proud, right?
he's
And
just
then
sitting in the corner, just waiting.
and it was like one of those things where it's like the whole thing needed to play out, but it was taking too much time, so it just sped up the film. It made it comical, and it like sort of
Right.
exasperated the point. And also, he did it again with the hotel owner calling El Moco,
Yeah, yeah. He's
or
like
not
waiting
El Moco,
until
just Moco.
yeah,
I was
Mocha.
Moco.
Right.
And like it was used effectively, and it was one of those things that because in Road Warrior, Mad Max 2,
Uh-huh.
they sped up the film there, but they used it in action scenes to increase the pace and the urgency there because I mean
Right.
obviously it's a lot easier when you're driving a car. You don't need to drive it 100 miles an hour. You can just speed up the film and make it look like that.
Hmm.
Um, but then here it was used in a different way for a different effect, and it cracked me up. And I don't think it's a trick I've seen him use again, where like something.
No,
It's
he
like I don't
might.
know if it's supposed to add comedy or I mean it
Oh, it
cracked
totally
me up.
is.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah. No, it's very deliberate. It's not meant
yeah,
to be to enhance the movie in a as a special effect that's not supposed to go noticed.
no,
It's almost
yeah,
like what Godard did with the jump cut in Breathless. You know, going back
right.
to like the '60s or is that a '50s movies? Anyway, but it's all that period of French cinema. And speaking of
Mhm.
that this is kind of like a mixture of cinema verite and like Looney Tunes. You're definitely right. Like some of that stuff is very exaggerated, but yeah, for comical effect. Like
Mhm.
like that, I laughed so hard, and that hotel owner is just waiting until he's like outside of earshot, and he just
And then
stands up and
light speed.
light speed.
He just shoots directly up, turns, and then goes to the
Right.
camera, goes to the phone, and just the pacing of it, this film speed up is just amazing.
Right. And for the mariachi band, it was definitely just the dude was supposed to be ridiculous because the whole point is how like technology is kind of taking over things and people are losing their humanity and it's not really for the better.
Because also the sound on the keyboard is sped
Oh
up
God.
along with it when he's playing it, because it makes the whole thing just amazing, and you just see the exasperation on El Mariachi's
When
face,
he
and he's
brings
just like,
when he brings that first stool out, I was just like, is he gonna sit on that? What's he doing? Then he brings the second stool, then he places the keyboard on it, and you're like, what?
oh man. And then actually, what? So I had to read up on this because it cracked me up when it was in the opening. Well, not the opening, but it was when El Mariachi was first getting into the town, right? And he
Mhm.
gets the coconut from the guy, and the dude just gives him the coconut. And then El Mariachi walks in. I was like, wait a minute, did he not pay? Did he not, like, did he steal
No.
that? And
Right.
then El Mariachi's voiceover says, like, oh, free coconuts. I like this town. And I was like, who has free coconuts, right? And then I was reading up, and it was Robert Rodriguez. They forgot to film him paying, so they're like, oh, we'll just freaking voice over. It's like we can't go back and
Right.
redo it. It's like we'll just voice over that it was a free coconut and
Oh,
then
that's
just move on with the
hilarious.
movie.
That is
Cause
really fun. Because I remember thinking about that while watching that. Well, two things came to mind. I was like, I don't remember free coconuts when I visited Mexico,
I was like, I
and
don't remember free coconuts anywhere.
I know. And then two, I was thinking like this dude's like hacking at that coconut like barehanded. He's like an inch away from losing a finger, and he's doing all that just like for free, or I guess maybe
Yeah,
the government's paying him, or but still.
because that was the thing. Because then I was like, wait, is his main business ice for some reason? And he just has these
Right.
coconuts, right? Because he's just going to town. He's going ham on that
He
ice block.
is.
So I was like,
He's going ham on it.
I was like, okay, so maybe he does just have coconuts as like free gratis or whatever. And but then the voiceover that he was like, oh, free coconuts, I like this town. I was like, well, that answered my question real quick. And then
Right.
then I was reading up, and I was like, oh, that's amazing.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I did not remember free coconuts in Mexico. I remembered slight differences. Like in Mexico City, the stop signs say alto, and in
Hmm.
in Colombia, well, I'm saying it alto, but
Right.
in Colombia it's pare.
Oh, right.
And you notice little things like that whenever movies get lazy about like shooting on location, and for a lot of times they're shooting something that's supposed to be in South America, they'll just use Mexico, and it's like whatever. People won't notice the different accents or different,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of ridiculous because you don't really do that with other stuff. Like if someone's maybe they do, but can you think of like a movie made in Hong Kong where they're going to America and it's like a bunch of like Australians talking, you know?
Oh, yes. I can't.
Is
There
there?
is a thing where they needed. It was the. Oh God, now I can't remember. It was, I think, an Asian film where they needed someone to play an American, right? But I
Yeah.
think they got an Australian who he was trying to do an American accent,
But
but
he
it
was at least
wasn't.
trying. It
He
wasn't
was
just
like kind of trying, but it was very obvious it wasn't like an American accent. And they're like, ah, whatever, it's good enough.
right,
Because
or
I
they
mean,
didn't get some British guy driving on the wrong side of the road or something.
right, right. But oh, that one thing that well, it didn't throw me off. I was trying to figure out if it was intentional. It was in the opening scene when Azul, and Moko were talking on the phone, right? And they
Yeah.
used the word amigo, but for some reason, amigo wasn't translated in the sub.
Hmm.
In the subtitle, it was left
Yeah.
amigo, and I was wondering if that was like a Western motif where, because in the Westerns they'll use like faux Spanish or whatever
Uh-huh.
because of the Spanish influence. So I was just wondering, I was like, why didn't they translate it to French? Because it would be like dot 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 amigo or whatever
Right,
in the
right.
subtitle, and that just sort of cracked me up. And I was like, why didn't they translate that? I was like, was
Hmm.
that just like to help keep in with the Western thing? Because you will hear amigo being used in Westerns or whatever.
Right.
So I was just wondering if that was intentional or what was that? That just sort of threw me off. Well, it
Oh
didn't
man.
throw me off. It just sort of like it was something to know, and I was just like, huh, huh.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, it's definitely helpful to understand the language that's being spoken.
That was a weird thing because I was like, oh wait, is the subtitle? It's actually on the film, right? It was because
Yeah.
I rented it online or whatever.
Hmm.
So then it was like a weird thing where I don't know. It's always weird when you speak the language of the movie. So I was hearing the movie and then reading the dialogue. So then I had like two
Yeah.
translations going in my head versus what they were actually saying and what
Yeah.
I was reading. And then it was just sort of like throwing me off. And I was like, God damn it! And I was like,
Right. I this was my process with it. I also rented it online, and
mm,
I like you, I also would have understood it fine in Spanish. But I was like, this the podcast is in English, but let me just put it in Spanish and see what it's like. So I went to subtitle options, turned it on, and what that did is place subtitles from the website on top of the subtitles that are on the film, and they're both the
mm-hmm.
same, both in English. So I was like, what the hell's going on? And I had to turn that off. And yeah, there was no option for Spanish subtitles on this website. So I
I
was like, all right, I guess
gotcha.
I'm watching it like this. uh, but uh, but yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that about the coconut because it really ties into the whole point of the story, which is that this kind of guy in this very much Western motif of the guy enters town
Mm-hmm.
hoping for something, and what he's hoping for is like a turn of pace, some good luck with his mariachi career, and I guess I shouldn't spoil. We haven't even said spoilers or anything yet.
I thought I mentioned
Did you?
spoilers, but yeah. But either way,
Okay.
spoilers because we're gonna discuss. We're not. It's not like a review or anything. This is a discussion.
Yeah, but yeah, eventually at the end of the movie, it turns into the complete opposite. He's turned into a hitman. So like, it seems like the coconut really like illustrate that point. Like it was this town that was giving him all this promise, and it turns out that this town turned him into a killer. Like just. It's a huge case of mistaken identity that just gets really blown out of proportion.
It gets hard real fast.
Oh, there's so much to talk about, like background too. This really cracked me up. Apparently, most of the $7,000 budget Rodriguez had, he had
Hmm.
raised by participating in experimental clinical drug testing. And I'm like, damn, like that's one way to raise a budget. And I guess it's fair to say that those experimental drugs gave him the power of directing.
He fucking channeled it. I mean,
uh,
that's the thing. It's like if you do experimental clinical drug testing, right? It's like how many tests are you involved in? And then it's like, no one knows how those experimental drugs are going to
Yeah,
interact with one another,
I
okay?
know. If you're raising $7,000 worth of testing, that's a lot of stuff in your system, man.
In 1992, or even before 1992, right? How long,
Yeah.
like this late 80s? It's like, what was he injecting into? It's like,
He's like a walking Long Island iced tea of experimental drugs.
I know, it's like somehow best case scenario is he was in the placebo group for 100% of these trials,
Right?
okay? Best case scenario, okay?
He's just super lucky and he's just hopped up on sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Oh,
my
man.
god. So yeah, that was funny. But all right, I guess we should go in order. So yeah, you were mentioning Azul is in prison. It kind of starts out from there, right?
Yeah, he was in prison, but not really. I mean,
No, yeah, he's running a business out of there.
he had a phone. He had complete access to a satellite phone, or at least, I
He
mean,
did.
a portable phone. I mean, it had its own thing, and that was the kind of phone that you do see in um, cars like in the late 80s or whatever. And then he had a cooler in his cell. Well, here you talk about it. You started because
Yeah.
I have too many disjointed thoughts on the amazingness and ridiculousness of this opening.
But I
Okay.
like where I like where you're going with that though. Well, it's crazy because he's just sitting there. At first, you're like, does he work there? Like, is he's like answering phones and like giving orders and whatnot? And
Yeah, he had a briefcase. He had a like notepad. He was taking notes. He was jotting stuff down.
yeah, and then the most mysterious like prison guard ever is this lady that's just walking around like taking bribes from everyone. Apparently, you can't.
Hmm.
I still to this point I can't tell who she accepted bribes from and who
It
she.
was anyone and everyone. Okay, she was
I
like, if
think it
I can
was.
make money, I'm going for it.
Yeah,
It's like, you know what? Respect. Game recognized game. Okay.
respect. Yes, yes. So. So Azul, who's this criminal that's quote unquote in prison, gets a call from Moko. That's
Hmm.
uh, well, we don't know who the call is from, but we see a beauty dive into a pool, and she's wearing makeup, so you know what this means. They're gonna introduce a drug dealer. So,
Hmm.
so there's this guy in all white that looks kind of like the Mexican James Spader, and
Except
right.
for the fact that he was American. The
He
actor
was, wasn't he? His
he
accent was
was.
pretty weak.
That was the thing. He didn't speak Spanish. He had to learn the lines phonetically, so he didn't know what he was
Oh, he did?
saying.
Kind
Yeah.
of like Banderas
Yeah,
in
like Banderas in, was it Mambo King or whatever?
one of those.
I can't remember the title, but yeah, so Banderas had to learn those lines phonetically. He didn't know what he was saying, and here Moko, or the actor playing Moko, had to learn his lines phonetically too.
Yeah, let me look him up. Peter
Which,
Markard.
yeah,
So, yeah.
and that actually happened to a Del Toro film, Pan's Labyrinth.
Hmm.
Um, whatchamacallit, the why am I blanking on his name? The actor who actually played Pan, who was in the physical makeup,
Oh, right. I don't
tried
know his name.
tried to actually learn how to say the lines to make it so that even though he was being, his voice was being substituted, if he spoke the
Hmm.
lines, it would actually help with the facial expressions, actually saying the lines correctly. So he was trying to actually say the Spanish, even though he doesn't speak it, so just to
Hmm.
make the face more readable,
Yeah.
which was a good touch. It was a thing he didn't have to do it all, but he wanted to because he figured, if the lips are moving correctly, if I'm articulating the sounds properly, it'll add more
Hmm.
credence to the character. But then, yeah, when you're commenting on this dude's accent, it's like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
Hey, whatever. He made up for it by lighting enough matches off of a guy's neck that I'll give
Oh
him a
yeah.
pass. That was great. uh,
He was very
but
punctuating in his delivery.
yes, yes. But anyway, it turns out it's Moko who's calling Azul, and there's been some kind of a misunderstanding on how much money Moko owns Azul, but it doesn't really matter because Azul's about to find out that Moko, this drug dealer, is gonna take him out while he's in prison.
Correct.
So he thinks Moko's gonna bail him out, but he's actually sent three hitmen that go I guess they can just enter the prison because they've bribed the guard lady, and they waltz in. But Azul has this cooler with all these weapons and all these guys that are willing to like help defend him. So they kill the assassins and send Mocha the message that they're coming after him.
Yeah, no problems actually opening the gates at all. That they have a cooler with a gun
Right.
in it. And then, so they just open the cell gates, and then Azul hands the lady money and just walks out. And then I was like, was he just paying for room and board? Like, was he just in there just to kill time? Like, he's like, well, whatever, it's a roof
Right?
over my head and meals.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he has, when they were on the phone, when he was on the phone with Moko, he was like, "You left me in this prison or whatever." It's like, okay, well, clearly you're not in any
Yeah.
sort of.
No, you can leave whenever you want.
It's like, and you have, and no one seems
Right.
to have a problem with this. It's just like that just cracked me up, and they don't really try to like explain anything for that
No,
part.
no.
It's just like this is the situation. This is sort of the corruption. Yeah, what are you gonna
Right.
do? It's just like.
Exactly. So it had been a while since I'd seen El Mariachi, and so I was like, "Is this guy El Mariachi?" I thought he looked different, but yeah, it turns out that guy's just the
No, I
hit.
remember vividly that that wasn't El Mariachi because I remember before I saw it, my brother saw it too because he was like, Richard, you know how there was like supposedly a movie before Desperado? I was like, yeah. He's like, I actually
Uh,
watched it. I was like, yeah. He was like, and the assassin's just this fat dude. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what are you talking about? He's a fat guy. He was like, yo, you gotta watch this movie. It's hilarious. The assassin's just some fat dude. I was like, okay. So I started watching it, and I just started cracking up as soon as I saw him. And I was like, ah,
right.
my brother was exactly right. The assassin's just
It's
some
true.
fat dude.
And I think details like that is what gives this movie like a lot of realism because
It does.
yeah, the assassin's just a fat dude. Like even though he's just how to transition to this. Like there's a point where he wakes up with what must be prostitutes. Maybe they're just all girlfriends of his, but like someone calls him and they answer the phone and he's just lying there with all these women
Hmm.
and none of them are particularly good looking to me and it's just I don't know there's a lot of it just the whole thing feels really gritty and down to earth and I think it works really well.
It really does. But anyway, so he gets out of jail. I shouldn't even say he gets out. He literally walks out. Like getting out sounds a lot more
We
impressive
can't
than
get
what he
past this.
did. We can't. 'Cause it's just
It's that shocking.
no. It's literally all the gates are. They're not. I don't even know why they're closed because they're not locked. I was like, I just don't know if it's just for
Yeah,
convenience or they just
and
open them easily, and
yeah, the
then
guy just reaches in and like removes the lock, like no problem.
he gives the guard money, and then she's just there counting the money from the assassins paying her off, and now he just pays her for like basically room and board, um, and then he just walks out, and then he brings some of
Yeah.
his buddies with him. And then it's like the guard doesn't seem bothered now because obviously, like she knows what happened. She heard the gunshots. Now there's just like
Right.
bodies in her cells. It's just like, hey, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Let's just move on. It's like, all right, let's just move on. It's like, yeah, fuck it. I'm on board for this. Why not? All right.
Yeah. So then we get to meet the mariachi character, which is played by Carlos Gallardo.
Uh huh. Oh
And
man, I
does he
was
ever? Go
no,
ahead, go ahead.
no. I was thinking about the actor's last name, and it's because I was like, I've heard Spanish from so many different accents, and I was like, is it
Right.
Gallardo? Is it Gallardo? And I was like, how the hell do
I'm,
you say his last name?
I don't even know. Uh, all right. So where were we, Rico? Do you remember?
No. Wait, we were talking about us first meeting El Mariachi,
That's right.
and it is a classic thing of he doesn't have a name. He's simply El Mariachi. He doesn't,
Right.
which is a very Western man with no name.
Oh yeah, Blondie.
Yeah.
Even Silence from The Great Silence.
Mm-hmm. Or the classic Sanjuro.
Mm.
Um, But yeah, so he's providing voiceover narration, which is actually good because it also helps with continuity, apparently, of the.
Right. And that's just ingenious. Like many people have been like, all right, we need to like cut all that out or just go back to reshoot. But yeah, you just change the story, and if you're not nailed to something, then you can alter it and make it work for you.
Yeah, just fuck good. Yeah, so he's.
I like the way you said that. You should have said it in a Mexican accent. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
So that's how you do it. That's how you make it work for you. And so after we learn about El Mariachi, he's just trying to earn an honest living. He's going from one bar to the next, ordering soda pop because he doesn't want to ruin his vocals.
Right.
Uh, and he's just asking the bartenders like, "Hey, if you just throw me a few bucks every week, I'm just trying to find solid work."
Yeah,
And
I'll mostly work for tips. My main source of income will
yeah,
be from the tips. You don't have to pay me just a little bit just so I can just to get started or whatever, basically.
right. And his mirror image in the movie is the Azul character that broke out, who also carries a guitar case, but his is filled with guns.
Correct.
And there's similarities that both characters have in their attire, and they both go to bars a lot, except the killer orders a beer and he gets pissed whenever they don't give it to him in a bottle. And uh, it's pretty funny that all the bartenders are like, "All right, I guess I'll drink this."
Yeah, pretty much. They all
And
they all literally shrug.
yeah,
They all
it
just look
takes
at the
2 seconds.
beer in the glass, debate what to do,
Right,
shrug, and then just down it. Yeah, he goes to the first bar, and then they have their exchange, and then that's when the bartender's like, "What do I need one mariachi for when I have a whole band?" And that's the whole keyboard thing.
right.
So the mariachi realizes, all right, this guy isn't gonna budge. So that's when he leaves. That's when Azul walks in, and then that's when the bartender's like, "What is this, mariachi day?" He's like, "What the hell?"
Yeah. The killer finds out that all the guys sitting there work for Moko, so he proceeds to kill all of them.
Yeah, he asks them
Leave.
about Moko. Where is he? Do you work for him? And then they're like, "Oh yeah, he owns this bar."
And we might see the first case. Do you remember if the bartender there does the quick phone call thing, or is that later?
Oh man, okay. The bar. Okay. I'm sorry. This made me lose my shit laughing so hard. Okay. So after Azul kills everyone, right? The bartender rightfully fears for his life
Hmm.
because Azul returns, but all he does is to pay for the beer. So, so he pays for the beer and then walks out, right? So then the bartender immediately calls Moko, right? And then
Hmm.
Moko's like, "What happened? What's going on over there?" And the bartender literally just shouts out, "Moko!" He just shouts out his name. That's his answer to the question of what's going on, what's happening, is him shouting out the man's name. That's his response. And I
It's
fucking
like, dude,
lost my shit. It's like, dude, it's like that's how traumatized he is. Where
that's so great. I'm glad you remembered that.
I
Oh god.
I will now never forget that because that is now
It's so
burned into my
realistic.
brain, okay? Is that
It's like so many times in Hollywood movies, the bartender would have gone into some like explanation of what's going on, what he needs to do.
I know, he's like some
It's like,
crazy fucker just shot up the place, killed all your men. No, what is going on over
right.
there? Your response is just, Marco!
Marco!
Richard, are you okay? What's happening? What were those noises?
Right.
Fred! Like, I just, like
Yeah.
that's my
And it's
response
like,
to you.
look, it's like I know who I am. I know I'm on the phone with you. You know you're on the phone, and there's no reason for you to say, but yet I would get it. I'd be like, oh my god, what's happening?
That's what made me lose my
So
fucking
good.
shit, okay? That's the span, like, the intensity. And it's just that he had a I don't know
Yes.
why it made me lose. Like, it just. It got me so much. Like,
Just thinking about it now, oh god, I'm almost crying, fucking laughing.
it's crazy.
Oh, I'm like gonna have to actually turn on the AC for the first time. I'm getting
I
hot.
know it's been hot here today too. I did thankfully I didn't turn on the AC. I just opened up two windows for cross ventilation. But I know what you mean. But yeah, no,
Oh my god,
that was his response.
so good.
It's the greatest thing ever. And then it cuts away.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Fred. It's just like I had a that was
No,
so.
no, that's what this podcast is about.
It's
This
just,
highlighting moments like that.
it's just pure gold. Okay, pure
It
gold.
is. It is pure gold. And I don't remember if the next scene is El Mariachi walking into the bar with his special lady friend he makes
I'm
later.
trying to think if it's he walks into the next bar next, or if the henchman of Moko goes to the hotel.
Right. So maybe he goes to, maybe El Mariachi goes to the Divey hotel, to the cheap one,
Right.
where at that point the word has already gotten out that be on the lookout for a mariachi carrying a suitcase.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, a guitar case, and the shady guy working the counter at the hotel is who's always reading his Egipto
Hmm.
newspaper. Sees El Mariachi and goes like, "Yeah, sure, I'll let you stay if you pay me later." But once he sees his case, he's like, "Let me get some money up front because I'm about to sell you out."
Yeah, because the
So
guard warned him. He's like, "Oh, what happens if I don't tell you? You'll kill me." And then the guy's like, "No, he will." So the guy's in fear of El Mariachi. So once he sees the case, he's like, "Oh, give me a down payment." And El Mariachi takes all the money he has left um, out of his
yeah,
pocket. And he's like going through, it's like how much can he actually spare to give the guy,
right.
because he still
Like
needs
he
to
needs
buy
a couple
food.
bucks to
Yeah,
eat.
yeah, he
Yeah,
needs food, right? So then the guy just takes the whole thing.
yeah. It's like, thank you, that'll do.
Yeah, and then gives him a key. So Mariachi's like, all right, goes to his room. At which point, the speed up goes in. Uh, the
Oh yeah,
the hotel
super
worker
quick
calls the
call.
gang. Yeah, so then El Mariachi goes to the room. Um,
By the
and
way, that guy was great. I don't know if he's normally an actor, if he's just actually working in a hotel like that, or if he's a friend of Robert's, or what. But I enjoyed that character a lot.
yeah,
He was gold.
that
He
dude
was
was
gold.
gold. As the clerk. So he just freshens up, washes his face, and then he goes to basically take a nap, pass out on the bed when he has a dream that
Yeah,
wakes him up with a little kid with a ball, and then the
yeah. He has some like horrible fever dreams.
yeah, it was intense. I mean, it's like no wonder those fucking coconuts were free. All right, he's probably like losing his goddamn mind from them. All right,
Yeah, it was a bad batch.
it
It
was
was
a
a
bad
bad
batch.
batch.
All right, it was a bad batch.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up the kid because that was a really cool scene. The way it builds up tension
Hmm.
with the basketball,
Yeah.
because it's a really cool image as the kid's bouncing the ball and the sound of the bounce is really exaggerated, the echo and everything. But then as after the kid grabs the ball and keeps walking, the sound continues, kind of like to show that the threat is still existent
Hmm.
and it's like all around him and and then he wakes up. This might have been a later dream, but
I mean, yeah, 'cause he has a couple of dreams throughout the film.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the theme of it is that he's in constant danger and
Hmm.
always trying to escape from it. So yeah, so after he's running away, he keeps kind of like putting himself in harm's way though. Like even after he finds out that they're looking for someone with a guitar case, he always goes back for it.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause that's his livelihood. I mean, he is El Mariachi, and then I don't know if it's like specifically his family one, 'cause he keeps saying how he wants to be a mariachi, like his dad, like his grandfather, um,
Right.
and his great grandfather, right? So I don't know if it's like the family heirloom that like he has that particular attachment. I know he has no money, so he can't buy a new one. But it's like it's literally his only possession aside from the clothes on his back.
Yeah.
It's his guitar case. It's all he has. So
Yeah, so I guess he's
like yeah, because he does juke him, right? But then he walks past
right.
them, um, and because they don't know this face, and they only know that he has a guitar case and he wears all black. So when he takes off his jacket, he just has a white shirt and black pants or whatever. So he just walks by. But then it's
It's pretty funny when he does that because he just does the whole hands in pockets thing.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, all right, he can't be guilty because he's walking with his hands in his pockets.
Exactly. He's whistling, right? That's clearly a sign of innocence. He's just minding his day. All right, he's enjoying his day.
Exactly.
But yeah, so he
He's
goes.
kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, so his guitar case, it's basically the only thing in the world that's important to him. I mean, it's literally
Right.
more important to him than his life. Or it is his life, right? So without it, he has nothing.
Right.
So yeah, he goes back to get it, and that's when the freaking clerk keeps calling him out, like screaming, like "You morons!" or he's over this way. So there's a lot of back and forth.
And by the way, that henchman has like the thickest mustache I've seen in a while.
Oh man, when he
It is
first
voluminous.
walked into the hotel, I was like, "Holy shit! I forgot Mexican Freddie Mercury was in this movie." Okay.
Yes.
I was like, this dude is amazing.
He is. You're right, he is Mexican Freddie Mercury because he's always got the shades too.
He always has the shades. And then that was the thing. When he took off the shade, I was like, oh, god damn it, it broke the illusion. But when he had the shades on, I was like, this dude is fucking Freddie Mercury. He's amazing. Okay. But anyway, yeah, that's when he goes back. He gets his guitar, and then he gets the mace off the wall, which you think he's going to use as a weapon. But no, he actually uses it as basically to zip out a line, and then he gets fucking hit by a bus. Jesus Christ. And that was one of those things.
Yeah.
It was like, because it was like such a low budget movie, I was like, I can't remember. It's like, was he meant to clear it, or was it supposed to be that the bus hit him and they just like, just roll with it? Just fuck it. We can't do it again. It's like, that was.
I mean, the actor looked uncomfortable. Like, I was just hit by a bus.
I know, right? He was like, shit, I really thought I was going to make it, but I guess that adds to like the realism of the scene, even though the bus was so...
You can only ask so much out of a mace on a wire.
Only so much, right? And then that's when he gets to the ground level, and somewhere there, and then he doubles through, and then he runs in between the two gunmen, and then this is when the movie slows it down to exaggerate the point.
Oh, right.
And then the gunsmen shoot each other, and then he's able to finish off the other two. So he ends up, like, total, he kills, quote-unquote, 4 people. Really, I think he only killed 2. 2 of them technically killed each other. But he's responsible for their 4 deaths, right?
And they were, to his defense, in self-defense. Like,
it was all self-defense.
Gunning out for him. Yeah.
So,
but he is technically a killer now.
Yes, he is a killer.
Self-defense.
So then, then he goes back to the bar with Domino. And then he's very honest because, I mean, it's perfect. He's literally just a normal dude, like kind of traumatized by what happened, and he needs to talk about it. And then she again,
to the point.
She again has a very perfectly normal reaction, like, you just killed 4 people. I'm gonna call the cops, right?
Yeah. And I mean, do you think she was calling the cops there, or was she calling Moko? Because we find out that there's a connection. Once he goes to her room and he sees the similar mace thing on the wall, he doesn't get it, but we get it.
Yeah, we get it. But that's also one of those things where it is. You do have a point, right? Because it's like the cops don't really seem to have much of an impact. I mean, there's literally Azul walks out of a police station or a prison or a jail, whatever it is, right? Like, it's nothing. There's gunfire on the streets. No one seems to be bothered. Like, none of the civilians are bothered, right? There's no police called to the scene. There's not even like cops looking for the aftermath. So it's like, was she really calling the cops? Or it's like, or the gangsters the only sort of form of justice, right? Like, racketeering bit. Like, if you find some like killer in your bar, you call the gangsters to come take care of it.
Right. I mean, it might be the only thing to do, because later on he's even walking down the street with like an Uzi on his shoulder.
On his shoulder. Like, he bumps into a pole with it. Everyone's just like, yeah, no problem. Like, the gun hits a pole and he just sort of spins around, and no one has an impact. And the gangsters themselves, they're not hiding the guns either. They're walking down the streets carrying them.
Yeah, there might just not be any police in this
So
town.
no, yeah. So you do have a valid point of like, was she really calling the cops? It's like I don't know, Fred. I got nothing. It's like-
She was gonna call somebody.
she's
We can at least leave it at
she
that.
is calling someone, but after he's like, no, it was self defense. I don't understand what happened. He was like, because even he admits like he was able to walk past them, and like
Yeah,
he was like, so I don't know why they want to kill me or anything. Because even like when they first got to the hotel, they went to the wrong room. And the clerk is like screaming, no, room 10, room 10.
right,
And
right.
then he's just like, I don't understand what's happening. So so he convinces her to just let him stay, and then she's like, "Well,
Right.
why do I want a dude who's for some reason being hunted? You yourself admitting this, right? You're like, he's like, all
Right.
right, self-defense. Four guys tried to kill you. It's usually hunting.
Yeah,
If they come looking for you here, it's like, what the hell? Um,
right. And I forget how he sweet talks his way into let him crash there.
I don't
Um,
really remember either. It's just one of those things where it's like sort of charm, and he's just like puppy dog eye. Like I think this is
yeah.
a scene where Rodriguez really gets up close and personal with the face, and you really
Oh
see
yeah.
El Mariachi's
Work your magic, man.
work your magic. He's got like green eyes. They're kind of like glinting in the light.
Right. Get the glinting light man here.
There's literally starshine coming out of this man's eyes. Okay. So then she's like, okay, fine, you can stay here. All right. So he goes upstairs,
Yeah.
and that's when that's when Freddie Mercury rolls in.
But actually, once she lets him stay at her pad, like he's kind of presumptuous. He just kind of like lets himself in. He starts using the
Yeah,
tub
because
as
she's just
just
like
helps himself.
she literally is like, you can stay here, but don't touch anything. But then
Right.
he's just going in. He's just like, fuck this. He's like, I just need to relax. So he's like, I just need to calm down with a nice bath or whatever.
Yeah.
Which it is very presumptuous, but again, it's like one of those things where it's just one room and there's a bathtub in the middle of the room. There's no like there's no separate room for the
Right.
bathtub. So he's like, whatever. Um,
I guess if I had been recently chased by Freddie Mercury with a machine gun, I would also be like, you know what, I need a
yeah, it's like I
bath.
need a bath, man. It's like I've been walking all day in the desert. Let me just sort of relax in this bath, and then it is kind of presumptuous, but it's like, what else is he gonna do? Otherwise, he'd just be sitting in a chair, sort of staring at nothing. So it's like, at least let me just sort of calm down from this horrific
Yeah.
thing.
So at this point, Domino like comes up after talking to.
After talking to fucking Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, that's who was in there, right? Let me
Yeah, he
look him
was.
up. I think it's okay. Jaime de Hoyos is Bigoton. That's gotta be him, right?
Yes, yeah, the mustache guy.
Yeah, I mean it's literally Bigoton in the cast credits, so so it's gotta
Yeah, I
be
think
him.
yeah, it doesn't it translates to mustache guy or whatever. Like,
Right. Like I
uh,
may
uh,
not be 100% sure on this one, but I'm willing to bet the shirt off my back that Bigoton has to be Freddie Mercury. For those who don't speak
just
Spanish, bigote is his mustache. So
yes, mustache. That's what I was like. That's got to be him. I was like, these names are all
gotta
very
be
on brand. All right.
right.
I mean, even Azul, even though he wears all black, he still has a blue T-shirt on.
Yeah, that was funny because it's like, why doesn't he wear all blue? When Mariachi asked Domino that later. Yeah, and it's funny because we took a little break before we just resumed, and I was like, you know what? We haven't talked about the beginning enough. So, so I watched that scene again.
Did
Um,
you get any clarity out of it, the rewatch, Rand?
No, not really. Maybe a little, but I started laughing at the point that once the lady goes back in, because there's two guards. There's a guy that doesn't really do anything, just reads paper. But
Right.
when the female guard goes to the back and starts switching all the lights off or on to, I guess, let them know that something's happening.
Hmm.
Uh, Eventually, she switches on the light where the Azul character is, Hitman, and he's just like flustered by it and takes out a remote and turns it off immediately. Like, and
Yeah, he just
like,
clicks it off.
yeah, he's got a clicker to turn the light back off and puts it back in his suitcase. Like, damn, this guy is set up in here.
No, he is just ready to go. It's like I still don't understand because he does make a remark like how Moko like left him is leaving him in prison or whatever, not paying him his share of the money.
Right.
And he's just like, dude, I don't understand. It's like you got a desk, you got a workspace, you're perfectly good. I don't understand this like you rotting in jail and then you're just able to walk out freely. Because I remember there was something with like a wrench where the lady comes in with a wrench or something.
Yeah, she starts making noise with the wrench. Like, I guess alerting them that someone's coming or something like that.
And then if that wasn't subtle enough, she starts doing the freaking light switches.
The light thing, which wakes up all the people that are sleeping except for one fat guy, which Azul wakes up later with like a kick to the ribs.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, this is the only way to get this done. All right.
And the dude doesn't even flinch. He's just like, all right, this is how I usually get woken up. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I gotta get to work. Gotta punch in. So anyway, yeah, we'll probably end up talking about the opening again later, but...
Well, I was thinking of the opening, and I didn't mention this before, but while I was watching it, it reaffirmed why you should always carry a knife, okay?
In what instance?
Okay,
I
so
saw the opening like 3 times, and not once did I thought I need a knife.
Well, of the opening of El Mariachi, his intro, right? Because after he's done drinking from the coconut, he just throws the coconut away. I was like, dude, there was so much coconut meat left over.
Right.
If you had a knife, you could have just opened it and eaten that. I was like, such a waste of a coconut.
That's
right?
true. That's true. Yeah. Well, I guess he's like, I didn't even pay for this, so I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
I don't care. He went to get his boots shined, and he paid for that, but it doesn't have enough to pay for a coconut, apparently. Well, I guess they're free in this world, but...
They're free. All right, this town. It was a great start. Okay, free coconuts.
Right, but yeah, after one point that cracked me up before Freddie Mercury shows up at Domino's bar, a great moment he had is when he's talking to Moko on the phone, and he gets a description of what Azul looks like because no one's seen him except for Moko.
Right.
And he's in front of the clerk at the motel at this point. And he just like grabs like the tiniest piece of paper to write down the description. I thought that was great because usually like in a scene like this, it would be very Hollywood-esque to just have like a notepad at the ready or something. But just he grabs like the smallest piece of paper.
It was a little stub and a slip. I was like, dude, that influenced me why I should always carry a notepad around just in case. Okay. Yeah. Again, I'm very easily influenced by Hollywood. I should not have grown up watching as many movies as I did. All right? It was like, these are the things you need.
Yeah, you're like carrying a knife and a notepad everywhere you go.
I was like, well, this is long before, but yes, it was just like, it was the tiniest slip of paper.
You never carry a guitar case around just in case?
Yeah.
But alright, anyway, getting back to where we were, Freddie Mercury shows up at Domino's bar and asks if she's seen any strange men, and Domino says, like, that's all I ever get, so I guess, and so Freddie calls, I'm just gonna call him Freddie. It's because Bigote, okay, Bigoton calls Moko.
Freddie.
Yeah. Freddie's just easier. It's what I'm thinking. So
it paints an image in your head. I mean, Bigoton.
Yeah.
Or Bigoton obviously paints an image in your head if you speak Spanish, but if not, it's Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, he's ready to bust into We Are the Champions anytime.
Anytime.
So he calls Moko, who is always getting like groomed and manicured and stuff like that, to tell him that Azul got away, and Moko says to keep track of him via the guitar case he carries, because that's where his weapons are, and he's like, you're gonna know who he is because he always looks the same. And so Domino goes upstairs to check if El Mariachi is the real deal or if he's carrying weapons and stuff. So she finds him in the tub, and she like proceeds to give him like the most intense like interrogation / performance request ever, because he's just caught unawares, and all of a sudden he needs to prove himself as a real mariachi as opposed to a hitman.
Yeah, she puts a knife to his throat and is like, what's in the case? He's like, it's a guitar. She's like, what's in the case? He's like, it's a guitar. I don't understand. It's a guitar.
Right.
And then she uses her foot, so she never takes the knife off his throat. She uses her foot to drag the guitar case, and she's able to unhinge the locks with her toes, which is amazing as all hell, okay?
Yeah.
And then she kicks off the lid, and then there is a guitar. So she's like, huh. She's still suspicious. So she removes the knife, throws the guitar at him, and then tells him to play something. And then he's like freaking out because he still doesn't understand what's happening. And that's when she dives the knife into the freaking water.
Yeah.
Just towards his, I'll put it delicately, manhood, okay?
This gentleman's area.
His gentleman area, alright? And then demands he plays something.
It's
something
high
on the
stakes,
spot.
man. High stakes.
It's high stakes, so it's actually hilarious. He literally starts playing and singing about what's happening right in that moment.
He is, but he's like he's perfectly in key and everything sounds as it should. But yeah, she's really funny because she's like toca la guitarra, toca algo dulce.
Yeah. Tócala, tócala. And then he's like
She's like, play something sweet. It's like something. Why does it have to be something sweet?
Yeah, no, she's like tócala dulce. He's like, what the hell? He's like, what are you demanding? Okay.
Yeah, but he immediately on cue just goes for it.
On cue, just go straight in. All right. And then after he does the most amazing improv ever, the improv of his life, really. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
She realizes, okay, he is who he says, and then tells him to relax. That it wasn't a knife; it's just a letter opener. But then she just still throws it in the water. And I was like, bitch, that thing's still pointy. I was like, that could easily just
right?
go.
Never mind the fact that he's probably got PTSD. It's like that's still dangerous.
That's still very dangerous. Okay.
Yeah. El Mariachi's like, that's the best I've ever played.
Yeah. And then they do a little flirtatious thing where he's like, oh yeah, you inspired me and all that.
Right. Yeah, she's like, do I have to always do this to get you to sing this well? In the meantime, Freddie Mercury has left Domino's bar without paying. I noticed the only two that ever pay for their drinks are Azul and El Mariachi. So
Correct.
I think that sort of ties into the fact that Azul, the hitman, does have a code, even though he's a criminal. Like he very much believes in like settling debts. So like,
yeah, exactly. That's his. He just wants his money, right?
Right.
It's not even like anything more. He just wants what he's owed. And so he figures if you owe someone, because he does mention like if you owe someone something, you pay your debt.
Right. Which is why he paid the bartender at the first place, even though he had gunned everyone down. It's like, well, you've already committed a horrible crime here. What's the point of not adding stealing of a beer?
There's a line, Fred. You don't cross it, okay?
You're right. I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone. I may have insulted. I went overboard. I don't know what happened.
I don't know what I was thinking with that one.
Give me a second. I'm going to splash some water in my face. Just, I don't know what came over me.
That's all right. Recompose yourself, Fred. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Rico. Thank you. You might have to take over for a minute or two.
So at this point, it's Azul arrives in Domino's bar, right?
Let's see. Does it? No, I think there's a cut first to to Azul's like safe house or house or whatever, and he's just laying in bed surrounded by women when he gets a call from Moko.
Right, and then they have the argument about he was like, you killed 10 of my men, and then Azul was only like, I only killed 6, and then he's like, whatever. And then they first sort of dismiss it, but then Moko keeps bringing up the number 10, and Azul's like, it's 6.
Yeah, they
what
can't
is wrong
get past
with you? Yeah, they can't get past this mini argument, which is hilarious. And Azul is just like, you were never good at counting. No wonder you're not good at paying me back if you can't even tell how many people I've killed, right?
Right, which sort of reinforces that Azul is a man of, like, he has certain rules. Like, he's not going to take credit for kills he didn't commit, even though it wouldn't matter at this point. It would just make him sound more badass, I guess. But he's like, I killed 6. What are you talking about?
And then it's like, I only killed 6. What are you talking about? It's like, it's like, let's not go crazy in double digits here.
Yeah. So basically, Moko is unpredictable in what he does, but that unpredictability can be predicted by Azul. So he also calls him out the fact that some things are always the same with him. Like he's like, I bet you're wearing white, and he's like, Moko's like, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, and it's soon to be stained with blood.
That's when he like decides to head out, and those two guys like try to get with the girls that Azul's been with, but then they pull the guns on them. They're like they're ready to defend themselves
Yeah,
and all that.
they're not just sitting around looking pretty. They're
Right.
So yeah, then we cut to a full house performance at the bar where El Mariachi performs a new song and it's a big hit, and Domino seems to sort of fall for him here. Then
Yep.
they talk in her room, and she reminds him to stay on his side of the bed. Or no, he's not even on the bed. He's like on the floor, right? So
Yeah.
El Mariachi respects that, and he falls asleep and has another one of his disturbing dreams. This time the kid is with like a severed head instead of a basketball.
Oh man, is this when he goes through the door that doesn't need to be a door?
I think that's the next dream.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a really cool shot.
It was a really cool shot, but it cracked me up. But anyway, you keep talking.
Like, why is he doing that?
I was trying to think if it was more effort to open the door or to walk around it, because it was just a door frame and there were no walls attached. The door
Yeah,
wasn't.
I was just surprised by the fact that it stood like upright after the door
It
like
stood
seems to.
perfectly
Yeah,
okay.
the door like slams closed and it's like the thinnest frame. It looks like it's about to fall over, but it like survived the shot. It was crazy. So yeah, next morning Elle is like brooding at the bar and decides that he's gonna go back to the hotel to get his cash back. He like can't let it go.
Yeah, he's like, basically, I gave the guy money for nothing. I'm gonna go get it back.
Right, like you can tell he's been thinking about it all morning. Which again, like I understand that he doesn't have much, but like he really just keeps putting himself in danger. You know, like just cut your losses. You know, let it go.
Yeah.
It's just some money. But anyways, he leaves his guitar case like tucked under the bar and heads back. At which point Domino calls Moko, and at this point we're not really sure if she's like a femme fatale type character that's going to sell out Elle, even though she seems to have already fallen for him. But
Right.
at some point here, Azul gets to Domino's bar and starts asking where Moko lives.
Yeah.
And
then Azul again, he pays for the beer,
Yeah.
but then he picks up a guitar case and then leaves the bar.
that's right. So he thinks he's leaving with his own guitar case full of weapons, but he's soon to find out that it's just the guitar case with the guitar because Moko's men find him outside. They're like, all right, here's a mariachi. We don't know if he's the guy or not. He kind of is just bracing himself to get shot as he opens
Yeah,
the case.
because they say he's like, he's like, okay, if there are any weapons in the case, we're gonna kill you on the spot. At which
Right.
point, his two henchmen in the trunk see what's going on, and then they're like, fuck this noise. They're like, he
Right.
can probably take care of himself, and they just take off.
Right, yeah, they're like, he's fine.
So then, yeah, Azul is closing his eyes. He's like, "Oh fuck!" And then the Freddie Mercury's just like, "Okay, you can go." And then Azul is just like, "Say what?" He's like, "What the fuck?"
Which is great because he's still like in shock, but he's like part of him is grateful, but part of him is still pissed at his friends. Like when he gets back to the safe house, and he's like, "You left me there with this. I'm supposed to defend myself with this guitar."
Yeah, because at that point, El Mariachi goes back to Domino's bar and he grabs his guitar case, but it's way heavier, and he's like, "What the fuck?" Which it's one
Right.
of those things how Azul didn't notice the weight difference, but as soon as El Mariachi picks it up,
Yeah.
he does, right?
Yeah, maybe Azul's just wasted at this point. Maybe he stopped it at every bar, just paying for his
Or
drinks.
he's that strong. Or he's that strong.
He's like, this could weigh a kilogram or 100. I couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell. I was like, maybe like that's what I was trying to like, because that was the thing. As soon as he picked it up, I was like, it's one of those things where I always try to like not bring real world, because it's like I just want to immerse myself in the movie and say like fuck, like just
Yeah,
enjoy
yeah.
it and not question every little thing, right? But it's one of those things I was like, all right, there is noticeable weight difference, and it's a thing that they bring up when El Mariachi picks it up, right?
Right, he can tell.
He can tell. So then I was like, all right, maybe Azul's just super strong. Maybe that's it, okay?
He is. It's like, you guys think this is fat, but this is all
It's
muscle.
all muscle, all right? I mean, he needs 3 women at a time, okay? It's like I got faith. I got full faith in you, buddy. I got full faith in you, you blue bastard who's dressed in all black, okay?
He's cultivating and harvesting mass at the same time.
Same time, simultaneous, all right? So then El Mariachi realizes. So he runs out with the guitar case, and then at that point, Freddie Mercury sees him round the corner and recognizes him from the day before. Um,
Right.
and then Azul looks back, realizes that's the guy that they think he is, and just kind of he gives him a dick smile.
Yeah.
Azul gives El
Like you're
Mariachi,
fucked.
yeah, he's just like you're fucked, and then he takes off, and then El Mariachi has another fight
Yeah,
scene.
he's forced. He has no choice but to crack open the case and start using the weapons to defend himself.
Right,
And we see a quick flash of the kid from his dreams, like walking around town.
right.
So then it cuts to Domino nursing El Mariachi back to health. So he's already, walked around town with the weapons and everything. Doesn't seem to be a problem.
Again, yeah, he just has the gun on
Yeah.
his shoulder. The clip of the gun bumps into a pole, and it just, yeah, not a problem at all. No one is bothered. This
Yeah, he doesn't
is,
need to put that shit away. He can
no.
just, walk to the bar.
Hmm.
By the way, that was a great shot.
It was an amazing shot.
Like before that, like that was great too. But the shot where he's just walking in the middle of the road with it's like an extreme long shot that's zoomed in a little bit, so it doesn't look like he's moving much, and the background's really colorful in the
Hmm.
middle of the street. But so it is kind of impressive that Robert Rodriguez was able to get those kind of shots with like a zero budget. And just it makes me wonder how much the town. He does say that small town was like at his disposal, but it makes me wonder like how much did the town like halt things for him to shoot that.
I have no idea.
But yeah. So anyways, we cut back to Domino like nursing his wounds, and so we find out that she didn't sell him out. She was just calling Moko to gather intel on the hitman who she found out is Azul, and that's when El Mariachi says, "Why doesn't he wear all blue?" It's like,
Yeah.
oh. So El finds out that Moko's been trying to court Domino for a long time, buying her gifts, and like yeah, he just gives her the bar to run and the latest gift is a motorcycle she hasn't even tried out yet,
Yeah.
and that nobody but Moko has seen Azul, which explains the confusion. So at that point, El Mariachi realizes why they've been hunting him, hunting him down as well.
Hmm.
So Domino suggests that El Mariachi lay low, and during this discussion, we get to find out that Domino says she cares for El Mariachi more than for Moko. So here's like a clear case of how she prefers somebody that can't really give her anything other than nice music as opposed to somebody who can give her all the material possessions she might want.
You are correct, sir.
So she turns the light off in the room, and he has a nightmare where he chases after Domino through a cemetery. And this is when he walks through that door you were talking about.
Yeah, the door that's just chilling out there, the door frame or whatever. It's like,
Yeah. Which is like, what was that, like a burned building or something? I don't know how he found that.
yeah, I have no idea how you find. It's just like a standing door jam. Then the walls are coming down, and I have no idea how like lucky he got.
Yeah. I mean, he does seem to just make the most of what he finds, including the dog that wakes him up in the next scene. How did he find like such a well-behaved, lethargic dog? This is like one of the best actors.
So that dog was one of the best. I mean, most dogs are pretty chill in all honesty, but the shot he did of the dog and the back and forth between the dog and El Mariachi's face with that sort of, I don't know if it was full fish lens or fisheye lens or whatever,
It
but
kind
just
of was.
that back and forth of basically how close El Mariachi, just how close El Mariachi's face is to this dog, and just that
Right.
sort of back and forth of the dogs just looking at him like, and they played it out in real time. It was just sort of that
They
like El
did.
Mariachi just trying to regather his brain and thoughts as to like what
Right.
is actually happening, and then the dog's just chilling out like, hey, what's going on? What's up? It's
Staring
just
at him like real up close, and then to
uh-huh.
confuse things, Domino like put some cash in his face too, like take this, and he just like
Yeah.
wafts it away with his hand, and he's like, I don't want your money, and she's like, no, look, it's just for a temporary guitar, just to get you back on your feet.
Yeah, it's like what the hell's a mariachi without a guitar? It's like that's your job, buddy. All right, it's like it doesn't make sense for you to go chase down this guy for your guitar. Just get a
Right.
new guitar. All right.
Yeah, but that shot reminds me a little bit of in Goodfellas when the guy wakes up to see his wife. I think her name was Karen, like pointing a gun right at him. It's that
Right.
kind of shot. What year was Goodfellas? Was that
Good.
before this?
Yes. Let me look it up real quick. All right. So Goodfellas was 1990.
Oh, so pretty recent. Before this was made.
Yeah.
So that was probably an influence in some way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of the most not notorious, the most notable crime movies,
Yeah.
or just films in
Um,
general. I mean,
yeah. I mean that's gotta be when you talk Scorsese. That's
yeah,
gotta be one of the ones you think of.
I
I
definitely
mean, he's
think
got so
so.
many great ones, but
I think that's definitely one that just immediately pops into people's minds when you think
which is
Scorsese film.
yeah, which is so weird because Scorsese didn't win an Oscar until The Departed, which I like The Departed, but it's definitely not his best movie.
Yeah, it is one of those things where you think about his previous catalog, and it's like one of those things where you just assume he's been an Oscar winner for all those
Yeah,
films. And
and
then
yeah, kind of like Hitchcock.
yeah, it's just one of those weird trivia things because you're just like, oh yeah, Scorsese, he's an Academy Award winning director, right? But then it's like, no, it's not until 2006 or whatever,
Yeah, whenever The
whenever The
Departed was
Departed
somewhere
came
around
out.
there.
Yeah, yeah. And you think of how long his career is, because I mean, it's been since the 70s and Taxi Driver, and you think of what a sort of seminal
Right.
film that is. And then Raging Bull,
Yeah,
right?
Raging Bull, Mean Streets, or yeah, he was Mean Streets too, right? I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just movie after movie. You're like, thank goodness he wasn't like a one-hit wonder director because he would have been like, damn, I missed out on getting my prize. But anyway, back to El Mariachi. Where were we?
The Pitbull, him going to get a guitar.
Oh, right. So while he's window shopping for the new guitar, he gets spotted by Moko's men, who are just convinced that he's the guy now.
Right.
Um, so he tries to flee, and for like the second or third time in the movie,
I mean, it's one
he
of those things where now, when you think about it, Asul killed 6 men previously. Now El
yeah,
Mariachi has also killed 6 men because he killed four the first time and then two, maybe even three. I don't know.
yeah, he's definitely up there now.
So they're actually equal amounts in how many of Moko's men that have been killed.
Right, and none of the survivors, except for the first bartender, know what the killer looks like.
Right.
And the bartender isn't really seen again after yelling "Moko." So, so most of the hitmen think that El Mariachi's the guy.
Well, because most of the hitmen are new. All the other hitmen have been killed, and only Freddie Mercury is seen.
Right,
has, has been around for multiple encounters.
right. He's like, I've chased this guy in and out of hotels. Like, this guy keeps slipping me.
He keeps giving me the slip. He keeps killing all the men. At
Yeah,
which point I'm like, why am I still doing this? All right, Moko's fucking lighting cigars on my face. He's like, I don't need to actually kill this guy. If he's killing my dudes left and
right,
right. But at which
right.
point he does get lucky because El Mariachi, duck diving and whatnot, does his patented jump into the back of a pickup, which is a reasonable
Yeah,
move. But it
he
just
seems to
turns
have
out
that one superpower. It's
he
getting into the
does.
back of a pickup.
I mean, it is one of those things where conveniently there are pickups littered throughout this city or this town.
Right.
So that he jumps in the back of one, but it turns out to be Freddie Mercury's henchman, who's like,
That's right.
who the Freddie Mercury's like, have you seen him? And the henchman's basically like laughing. He's like, yeah, he just jumped in my truck. And at which point
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury's like, okay, drive around, bring him back.
Yeah. So that's right. His go-to move didn't work out for him this time.
It didn't work
He
out because
gets yeah.
as soon as the
He
truck
gets taken to
parks,
Moko's place.
yeah, Freddie Mercury knocks him out, and then they take him to Moko's place.
Yeah. At which point, Freddie Mercury is about to get another cigar lit on his face because it turns out El Mariachi is not Azul, as we all know, but the only other character that knows is Moko. So
Yeah, that's one of those things. Like Moke was like, "That's not him. What the hell are you doing?" And then Freddie Mercury's like, "I don't understand. This motherfucker's killed 6 of my guys. How is this not him?"
yeah,
Okay, like he doesn't say anything because he doesn't want to argue with this psychopath boss, right? So he just sort of
right,
relents and is like, "All right, I guess I'll drop him back in town." But he's like, "I'm pretty sure this
yeah.
is the guy." Okay, like,
Yeah, and I wondered why Freddie Mercury doesn't kill El Mariachi, but it might be to like just maintain the illusion that he just randomly picked up the wrong guy without having to assume that this rando has killed half my crew. You know?
yeah, he's just like, okay, maybe I really did get the wrong guy. I don't know. Um,
Right.
so that at this point, Asul goes to the bar, the Domino's bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes there and says, "Where's my guitar case?" And then Domino is just like, "Is he alive?" So that like cues in Asul that Domino understands the situation.
Right.
So then Asul was like, "Take me to Moko's house. I don't know where that motherfucker lives." He was like, "You clearly have some connection with him. Take me to him."
Yeah.
All right. And then he was like, "Cause you care about El Mariachi." He's like, "You clearly care about this man's life. If you care about his life, you'll take me to go, and I'll just go handle it." All right.
Yeah. So they head in to Moko's compound. El Mariachi has woken up or whatever and headed back to Domino's bar where he finds the other bartender that just tells him where Azul and Domino
Oh,
went.
forgot to mention when Asul goes into Domino's bar, he demands a beer, and she immediately gives it to him in a bottle, and he just
Oh yes,
nods approvingly. He's like, "Finally,
right.
someone
Someone
gets
gets
it.
it right.
Someone gets
Yeah,
it," which was hilarious.
it was.
He's like, "Finally, someone isn't an idiot."
Finally.
He's like, so that's just what he's been questing. And besides the money he's owed, he just wants a beer
Right.
in a bottle. He's like, "Is that too much to ask for?" Okay.
Right. It's like if he wasn't a murdering psychopath, you almost feel for the guy. Like he just wanted a beer in a bottle.
And just that nod, that silent nod, that little detail just cracked me up, okay? That it wasn't
Yeah.
overlooked, that they made sure to film that moment.
Which also shows how Domino is savvy. Like she's not a fool. She can figure out the situation pretty
Yeah.
quickly and read into things.
So then they go to Moko's compound or whatever,
Hmm.
and at this point, he immediately makes a move where he puts a gun to to Domino's head, and he's just like, "Just play along." And it's one of those things where
Yeah.
you see it. It's like, yeah, he doesn't really. All he wants is money. He's not. And because he says play along,
Yeah.
he could have just like taken the gun and started kicking in the door, like just to like terrify her. But he wanted to like make sure she knew,
Right.
"I'm not gonna hurt you," or whatever. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so at which point they open the door. There's like 10 guys, and for some reason, Zul only has his little 6-shooter revolver out of all the guns in his case. And then he's just like, "This is your woman or whatever. Give me my money or I'll kill her." At which point
Right.
Domino starts asking about El Mariachi, which
Yeah.
Moko like immediately takes like he has that like look like, "Why are you asking about this rando dude?" But then he
Right.
realizes, oh, she's asking because she cares. At which point he goes crazy.
Yeah. Because Moko realizes like she lied to him earlier when she said she was doing nothing on her day off, and all of a sudden she's asking about someone. Like after everything I gave you, so like snaps, and unfortunately, yeah, just shoots her, which stuns even Azul.
Yeah, so he was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, yeah, and I don't remember exactly what he says, but he says something like, like I would have never gone this far or something like that.
Yeah.
To which Moko says, like, that's why you'll never be as great as me.
Yes, you're right. That's right. Azul makes that comment. He's like, "I wasn't even gonna really kill her or whatever. Like, I would have crossed that line." Again, Frey, you don't cross
Yeah,
these lines. You pay for your
right.
beers. You don't kill women.
Very true.
Um, so then Moko just shoots Azul, and he's kind of like, "All right, well, that solves that problem. Like, Azul is dead." And then it's one
um,
of those things that cracks me up when El Mariachi gets to the bar. the bartender there who works informs Mariachi of, the situation. And then Mariachi's like,
Mhm.
draw me a map to Moko's place. So the bartender knows where Moko lives. Um,
Right.
and then gives him a map. And then Mariachi takes the motorcycle that was a gift to Domino from Moko. And
Yeah.
he drives there. And then he storms the compound.
Which,
Um,
by the way, anyone that's not as old as us or older is probably like, "What the hell's a map?" What do you mean, draw me a map? It's like
God,
there was a point
that is one of those
that
things I always have to like keep in mind where I'm just like, just have a map. Like, what do you mean? Like GPS? It's like, no, not GPS, a map.
right.
And then it was like one of
Like,
those
what
things.
is a map without referencing GPS? What are you
I
talking
know,
about?
because this is again, it's just reminded me of I was in Boston and I had to go back and I had to go back to the same area. So when I got home, I actually looked at a map to like memorize, and then
Uh-huh.
I went back with my sister, and then because we were visiting my aunt in the hospital, and I was trying to remember where places to eat around the hospital were. And then my
Yeah.
sister's like, "Oh, we can just walk to this place." And then she got her GPS, and then like she
Mhm.
couldn't tell which way the GPS was pointing because she didn't know which way north was. So I was like, "No, no, it's this
Mhm.
way." And we started walking. She's like, "Richard, are you sure?" I was like, "No, trust me, I memorized the map." And then we started walking, and then she still was kind of doubting me because she was just like on the GPS, and I was like, "No, no." And then
Right.
I led us there, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, this is the place." She was like, "I don't know where the GPS was pointing us." I was like, "No, I think it was pointing the right direction. You just couldn't tell because you didn't know which way north was."
Right. Which cracks me up because that reminds me of a coworker I had in New Orleans, and she was pretty funny. She was like, whenever my boyfriend, whenever I'm trying to meet him, and he's like, "Look, just walk 5 blocks north." She's like, "Look, I don't know which way north is. Just tell me towards or away from the CVS. That's all I need to know."
And there's one of those things where you're like, I don't. It's like north is as clear as I can make it. It's like that is literally the definition
Right.
of all cartography throughout human history is
Right.
knowing which way north is. Okay, but
No,
it's like no,
towards or away from the CVS.
which is it's like, and she's not wrong either, right? It's like it's.
Yeah. But no, it's pretty funny because it reminded me of when I had a motorcycle, and I also went to Boston one time to visit a friend, and this was pre GPS days,
Hmm.
so I did what you did. I tried to memorize the map as well as I could, but I was like, chances are I'm gonna forget exactly where it is. So as a backup, I wrote down the directions on a piece of paper and taped it to my arm.
Your
'Cause
forearm.
yeah, to my forearm. And, I wasn't being completely irresponsible. I would, if I ever needed a refresher, I would pull over first and look at
Yeah.
it. But it's pretty funny though, because at one point, like when you're on a motorcycle, that the air is just hitting you pretty hard. So at one point, it lifted up the front of my map and started flapping. I was like, shit! It's like if I lose this, I'm fine.
Oh man.
So I have to stop and retape it.
Speaking of nothing to do with anything, I was wondering about that. Because we see it so much in science fiction, like sort of forearm computers, right?
Oh,
And I
right.
was like, because of the way technology's going, how a phone is itself just a touchscreen, right? There's no buttons or anything. I was like,
Hmm.
why has it? I was like, has anyone developed like a wrist-mounted like basically holster for your phone, right? So you can basically
Right,
just
right.
have, and then if you need to, I mean, there's Bluetooth, right? So you can just do all that stuff, and then you don't actually need to. Like you don't need to hold your phone in your hand because you could just have like some Bluetooth
Right.
or some wireless headphones to make the call that have the mic. And I was like, when are we getting to that level? I was like, I want so. I was like, how? Because I was like, would you just need the wrist mount to also be a power source, and then would you need cooling? I don't know. I've thought way too much about this, but it
But you're
seems like
right.
it's all
This all this
doable.
information's available. Yeah, just get some Velcro on the back of the phone, and you're good to go. I mean,
Exactly, like because
they've already made the Dick Tracy thing happen with the smartwatches.
exactly. So I was
So yeah,
just
why
like,
not this?
why not with just the full phone on your forearm? Which I don't know, because I was like, that's one of those sci-fi things. I was like, they've been showing that for years. Why don't we
Yeah.
have the wrist-mounted computer yet? Because basically we have that with the phone right now.
I mean, Rico, what can I tell you? That's a brilliant idea. I don't know why it doesn't. You know what? Actually, we're kidding. Richard has patented this, so don't steal his idea, or we'll sue you.
We will sue you. Yes,
This
after
is
we
this is a
finish
podcast that sues people.
after we finish paying off our other debt about combining two band names, which I won't say for legal
No,
reasons.
no.
After
Yeah, we have to pay our bills that we accrued from getting sued by suing you.
by two bands simultaneously.
You don't even understand for how much we're getting sued for.
You don't even understand. Okay. But anyway, so, okay, this is way off top. Alright, bringing it back.
We're so sidetracked right now.
Uh,
There were only like 5 minutes left in the movie. And
I know, it's like this discussion has been way longer than the movie is. Okay. That's one of those terrible things where when seeing the movie is shorter than listening to the discussion on the
It
movie.
is.
But anyway.
People are like, why am I listening to this? I could be watching the
I know,
movie.
I should just be watching the movie. And you should be, okay? Support
You should.
support things you like, right? So if you like Robert Rodriguez,
Yes.
that, or if you're interested, support it.
Please do.
But anyway, so getting back to the topic. So El Mariachi arrives at the compound. He finds the body. He arrives shortly after she's been shot. I mean, you don't need to take the
Yeah.
time of how long things take, like, too literally, because you
Right.
don't know. Like, even though it's done sort of sequentially and thematically, obviously there's
Right.
mess around with time. So then he arrives
Yeah,
shortly.
it must have been short because they're all still standing there.
Right. Plus motorcycles are a lot faster than that fucking rickety ass truck they were riding. But anyway.
Yeah.
So then Moko starts essentially mocking El Mariachi.
Yeah, he really falls off the deep end here.
He really goes crazy, and then he freaking shoots El Mariachi in the left hand, so he can't play the guitar anymore. And then, yeah, really just laughing and going full tilt. And then El Mariachi sees the gun, sees Azul's gun, picks it up, kills Moko, right? And
Yeah.
then the henchmen basically just are like, yeah, all right. Because, I mean,
Right.
which to me, that wasn't surprising. One, I mean, you've seen how Freddie Mercury has been treated by El Moco.
Yeah.
How El Moco's been treating Freddie Mercury throughout the film, right? And then it's also one of those things where they're not really, like, beholden to Moco. I mean, it's just like, he's just paying them, and he's like kind of crazy, and it's like, okay, well, he's gone, whatever. I mean, it's like the compound's still here. It's kind of like a next in line situation. It's like, well, the boss is dead. I'm
Right.
pretty much in charge
Freddie
now.
Mercury's like, I guess I'm in charge. All right. Like, thank you for the promotion.
And he does do his thing where he leans down and lights a match on Moko's corpse.
That's right. That's right.
And basically shows he's taken over. At which point,
Yeah, he's the new boss. And the king is dead. Long live the king.
exactly. Then it cuts to again Mariachi's voiceover, and you see basically he's just taken all of Domino's stuff. He's taken her motorcycle. He's taken her dog. He's taken her letter opener. And then his hand is basically duct taped back together again.
Yeah, it's all messed up. Yeah.
It's all messed up. And he also has Azul's weapons. He doesn't.
Right, because his guitar was left at Azul's hideout, so he never saw that again.
Yeah.
And I guess his one possession now, other than what he got from Domino, is just that case full of weapons.
And I mean,
He even says like he doesn't know if he'll ever be able to play the guitar again, so
right.
this might be his life now.
Yeah, he's like, this just might be my life. And then he also has Domino's letter opener, and then
Oh right.
then he rides off into the sunset, and
Yeah, he leaves Acuna City,
man, it was
a city that gave him everything, but also took everything away.
exactly, and it's one of those. It was when before and after I was watching this movie. Okay, this is again nothing to do with anything, but I had a BTS song playing in my head because there's one song they have called Airplane Part 2, where the hook is they keep saying El Mariachi over and over again. So when you were like, Richard, let's watch El Mariachi, that song just started playing in my head. I was like, God damn it. So I was just cracking up. So then when the credits were rolling, the song came back into my head over the music credit, over the song over the credits.
Right.
And I was like, let me go listen to that song now. All right.
You paused it and you played that song over the actual
Over the
song.
actual sound. I was like, all right, let me stop watching this Mexican film and start listening to
I
some
should have
Korean
known.
music.
I should have known you were gonna steer this towards BTS somehow.
Always, Fred, always. Any way I could. And this, I mean, this one, it's not even like a stretch. I mean, their song literally has the words El Mariachi in it over and over again, okay?
Which does make me wonder. You know how Robert Rodriguez does a lot of his own like editing and obviously directing, and
Yeah.
but he also plays music with a band that he uses in most of his movies. I wonder if this movie was one of them. It must have been because I remember a lot of different Rodriguez's being in the credits for
Probably.
music. I
I mean,
think.
this definitely would have been because, I mean, if you think about like the budget he was on, I mean, he pretty much did everything himself. I mean, they even left like essentially mistakes were kind of in the shooting. Like there, I think there was one point when Domino died. She, even though they were like shooting it sequentially, the actress I think moved, and it was like a noticeable move. But he was like, "Fuck it, we don't." Like
Oh, was
he
it?
even like acknowledged it was, but he's like, "Fuck it, just leave it in." He's like, "We ain't got time for that noise."
I didn't notice it. I must have been too distraught by her death.
Yeah, yeah, and then I think also, like for the hand shot, like they were supposed to actually have like a glove, um,
Mhm.
to cover up the actor's hand, but he literally forgot to bring it.
He's like a cyborg at
Yeah,
the end. It's like
exactly.
this took a hard turn.
It took a hard turn, right? But then he was like, "Shit, I don't have it." It's like, "Wait, we have duct tape that we use for filming. Just wrap up his fingers with that."
Yeah.
So like for that thing, for like the music, I'm definitely thinking yes, Fred. He definitely probably with his band was just like
Right. Maybe all those experimental drugs he took, like, just gave him an incredibly, like, some kind of improvisation superpower. That, like, you just can play off of anything. And it turned him into a Renaissance man, too. Because, yeah, like you said, he's probably doing his own music. He gets a cast to help out with the shooting and the filmmaking. And, yeah, he just basically does as much himself as he can. And I know he's said at certain points in his career, like, look, like, if you're a creative person, like, you're already a step ahead. Just kind of learn to be technical, learn to do as much as you can, because then you won't have to depend on other people to do it. So this is definitely his crowning achievement in that line of thinking, to show what you can do if you're determined enough to go for it.
yeah, that's one of those things. I mean, it's a movie where I mean, you have to remember when it was shot and you have to remember how it was shot cuz I think some people could like I don't want to say look at it as campy or like not sort of value
Mm-hmm.
what it is like especially by today's standards, right? I mean, like when you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier with like what anyone can do with literally the camera on their phone, right?
Yeah.
Versus way back Wednesday what he was doing. Because the movie actually was chosen to be preserved. Let me look up where that information was.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
in 2011, El Mariachi was inducted into the Library of Congress to be preserved as part of the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant, right?
Yeah, that's a big
That's a
deal.
huge deal. And yeah, just sort of what he was able to do, because even some things like when the henchmen killed each other in their first encounter with El Mariachi, it's kind of sort of laughable, like, but at the same time, it's still it's pretty awesome, like for what
Yeah.
it was and like how they had to do it.
Yeah, plus we're like desensitized from like 30 years of action movies that have done stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like back then, this was pretty dynamic shooting the way it was made.
Especially yeah, for independent dude, for literally a dude with a camera, right? I mean,
Yeah. Again, we want to remind you that's the situation.
I don't. It's just one of those things because even though I'd seen it before and I was rewatching it, like I had two like lenses of perspective of sort of the nostalgia of it, but then also thinking of it as an independent film and then what is capable of being done today versus back then.
Yeah.
It was just something I had to sort of remind myself. Like, so it just kind of cracked me up, but it
Yeah.
was still awesome. I still
And,
appreciated it, enjoyed it.
right. And it really has, like, the landscape itself has changed for independent movies and awards and stuff. Because I forget if it's Cannes, but I remember recently looking up what movies are shown at some of these more traditionally independent festivals.
Hmm.
And they seem to have, like, bigger budget movies now. It's not really like it was back then. Because it's kind of impressive how, sort of in the same span of time, we had Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, and others like Kevin Smith and such, who like all kind of broke out into the scene with amazing first movies that were all shot on pretty modest budget,
Hmm.
and that kind of like changed the scene forever with like what you can do with just enough creativity and modest budget. So
Yeah, it is one of those things where technology has gotten to the point of making up for those gaps, right? Where, like, they had to be
right,
creative, they had to find ways around things, they had to use techniques, right? But with even like a digital camera, not even like the camera on a phone, but you can get like a good digital camera for not that much money. And then because it's all digital, right, you just get SD cards, which are cheap. You can film a lot and then do a lot. So you don't need to be as creative or sort of um, work around problems, and then looking at what they did and sort of how that broke them into the career, um, because of
right,
their skill. That was the thing. It was like technical skill that they were able to achieve is just insane.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, anything else you want to add before we finish it off?
No, I was gonna try to shout Moko, but that's not happening.
uh, I feel like I'll probably throw that in at the end. We both shouted it earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
we call him L. It means the. I know what it means.
I know what it
I
means.
love Johnny Depp's response.
That's so good. That's from
That's
the
from
third one,
once,
right?
yeah, once upon. And that's another thing is that this movie was able to essentially spawn a trilogy, which it
Yeah,
was successful enough for the next chart, a studio actually gave him a budget, and then he made Desperado, which
yeah. And I haven't seen them in a bit, but I always kind of interpreted them as they are sequels, but they're also sort of reboots in a way.
yes,
Um, they're more like spiritual sequels,
it
which kind of lends itself to the whole uh, what's the word I'm looking for? How these are just kind of myths that people in the area hear. Story of the mariachi.
yeah, and it's one of those because it is like how it is sort of like spiritual, but then like throughout the Desperado film, he keeps having flashbacks of the encounter with Moko shooting his hand.
Right,
And
right.
it's like one of those weird things. And then I mean even the actor of El Mariachi is in Desperado. And yeah, it is one of those things where it's like it's a sequel, but it's not quite a sequel. It's like a reboot. And yeah, you're
Yeah.
completely right, Fred.
Yeah, because in the third movie, in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, there is a scene that does lend continuity to the whole story where El Mariachi's in the middle of a town trying to teach a kid how to play guitar, but he's like, I can't really play much anymore because his hand's all messed up. So
Mhm.
you can play and I'll pluck the strings. So, yeah, there is some continuity, but either way, it is called the Mexico trilogy, I believe.
Is it?
Uh,
Yes.
yes,
Literally called
the
Mexico
Mexico trilogy.
Trilogy.
All right. So yeah, so that was El Mariachi. Thank you for tuning in. Anything else you want to add, Rico?
Nah, I'm good. Listen to BTS. No, you cut that out, Fred.
Okay, I'll cut that out. How about instead of that, you just yell "Moko"?
Moko!
Perfect. Awesome,
You
awesome.
like that?
Oh, by the way, say Azul a couple times in different ways because I think once you might have misspoken at some point and called Azul El Mariachi. So just say Azul like conversationally, and I'll cut that in.
Oh, I wanted to say it real stunted, so it was mad obvious where it was like cut in.
If you want to say it like a robot.
Zool. Zool. I wasn't even.
You really want me to use that?
Yes.
Press 2 now.
Press 2
Para
now.
español, oprimo 3.
Azul, 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 azul. I was trying to say it as American and robotic as I could. I was like,
Well, now I don't know which one to use.
it's all gold, Fred. It's all gold. Take your pick.
They're all gonna be terrible.
I know, that's what makes it awesome.
Did you catch that moment when I put in the wood woo in there for you? I can't stop.
I did.
Every time I catch it, I die laughing.
That's why I wanted to exaggerate it this time, Fred. That's why I wanted to make it mad obvious.
Okay.
By the way, you have to leave all this in. Okay, you have to leave all this explanation in, Fred.
What? No, this is too much.
Nah, you gotta leave it in.
I gotta draw the line somewhere. We're talking about drawing the line. Look, even Azul has his limits.
I will start talking about tattoos again, Fred. All right.
Rico, you better stop the recording right now.
I have it. It's still going.
God damn you! Damn your ass, Rico! Damn your ass!
Damn your ass! All right, let me stop the recording now.
All right.
Moko!